We all know it's not okay to hurt or bully kids in school, and what the survey demonstrated to us and what it brought forward was that in fact kids are being hurt and bullied in school, but not by other students. In these cases, they're being hurt and bullied by the education system and the people in the system.
So over the past several years, Inclusion BC has been receiving calls from parents who have children that have been either restrained and or both secluded in schools. And we knew that this was just the tip of the iceberg. And so decided to launch a survey this past spring that went out to parents throughout BC, asking them specifically, had their children been subjected to these aversive practices and exactly for how long, what the ages were, etc. So we had about 300 people actually log into the survey, and out of that 300 there were approximately 200 who were actually parents and legal guardians, which was the group that we were focusing on at this point in time. And they were geographically spread out throughout the province. Some of the statistics that came back were quite shocking. For example, the majority of the children were in the age bracket of 5 to 10, which is just starting out in the school system, and it just breaks our heart to know that these kids are being put into either isolation or seclusion or being restrained because of some behavior issues that aren't being addressed in ways that are supportive of their education.
I think the survey results are shocking because they bring forward information and stories that are more about kids being hurt and traumatized in school than being welcomed and educated in schools. And I think that it is really the opposite of what school should be for children and for their families. It should be a welcoming, supportive, respectful environment. And instead, what that survey says for hundreds of children in this province, that it is actually the opposite, and children are being abandoned in rooms, and they are being dragged down hallways, and they're resulting physical injuries and traumatic psychological events that perhaps they never get over. And I think that it needs to stop, and I think we need to step back and say, what is school all about? And it's about raising good, healthy citizens who can contribute to their communities and throughout their lives. And what this does is exactly the opposite.
Well, there were many reports of physical harm or evidence that their children were experiencing pain as a result of being restrained. And then there was almost everybody mentioned emotional trauma. In both cases, either from restraint or being put into a room and basically locked away for anywhere from 5 minutes up to 3 hours at a time, and not being able to leave that. You know, their parents reported that they were traumatized, and there was one family who reported some ongoing counseling has had to happen over the years since this occurred at school.
What happens when children are subject to the kinds of things that came out in the survey, like pushing and being held down in chairs and being yelled at and being dragged down hallways and being put into rooms and having the door shut? What that does is it gives a couple of really significant and very profound messages to other students who witness it. Number one, it could happen to me. And number two, it doesn't create an atmosphere of belonging and inclusion, so that those kids are being ostracized by their treatment through no fault of their own, and they're being excluded and alienated from the rest of the students.
3/4 of those who reported that this had been happening to their students in school said that they didn't find out from the school, that they found out from other sources, either by the report coming from maybe another student. One jumped out at me, which said an anonymous note was left on their car saying, "This has happened to your child." They were put into a closet for the day. And then, after the parent had raised these issues with the school, most of them said that they were dissatisfied with how then it was handled after that. They did not feel that the situation was going to be rectified in a way that didn't harm their children. So in the long term, the report shows that about 50 kids have been removed by the families from the public education system because they could not find a resolution.
And not only is it our responsibility to bring these issues to light and to bring these situations to light, but it's also we want to be part of the solution. So we want to support better training and education for people who work in the school system. We want to make sure that there is access to good research and good data around what is effective and what has the greatest positive impact on the lives of students. We also want to make sure and help parents know exactly what's going on in the education of their sons and daughters and what is happening within the school setting. It's clearly important, given that 72% of the families that responded to our survey said they didn't hear about it directly from the school, they heard about it from someone else. So that really underscores the importance of knowing what's going on in school and being part of it and making sure you're getting all the real information.